On the 11th of September, 2023, 8 companies in Tokyo signed a shareholders agreement to build what they openly called national infrastructure for Japan's digital asset market. And look at who signed: Mitsubishi UFJ Trust, Mizuho Trust, and Sumitomo Mitsui Trust. So all three of the country's big trust banks. Then Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group, SBI, the research arm of the Japan Exchange Group, and NTT Data. That's 7 of the largest institutions in Japan in one room. And then there's the 8th name on that agreement. It isn't a bank. It isn't an exchange. It's a company you've almost certainly never heard of on the 35th floor of a tower in Roppongi, called Datachain. So here's the question running through this whole video. What does a company that size bring to that table that 7 institutions couldn't just buy? 20 seconds, then straight in. We run a Discord called The Motion Room. Come make it yours. Early access, where every video lands before it's public. Charts and data for the tokenomics research. Daily announcements, hackathons, job openings. And every Friday, one newsletter drops in there. Links below. On with it. So let's start with the man, because the origin story is unusual. Tetsushi Hisata founded a company called SPI in 2007 while he was still an engineering student. He ran it as chief executive until 2011, then did what founders almost never do. He stepped down on purpose to go and build new things. He registered Datachain in March 2018. Right, and here's the part most coverage misses. Datachain is not an independent startup. The small print at the bottom of their press releases says, plainly, that it's a subsidiary of SPI, a company listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. SPI's own chief executive sits on Datachain's board. So the thing sitting alongside 3 trust banks is the blockchain arm of a listed Japanese tech firm. And the problem they set out to solve is one sentence on their company page. Assets are going to be digitized on different blockchains, and they'll be programmable. But if those chains can't talk to each other, that programmability is wasted. They just sit there, isolated. So what did they do for the first 5 years? One problem, over and over, in public. There's a protocol called IBC, Inter-Blockchain Communication. It came out of the Cosmos world, and the idea is lovely. Instead of trusting a middleman to tell Chain B what happened on Chain A, Chain B runs a tiny piece of Chain A inside itself, a light client, and checks the proof itself. No committee, no bridge operators, just maths. And Datachain's bet back in 2021 was that IBC shouldn't stay locked inside Cosmos. That June, their project YUI was accepted into Hyperledger Labs, the Linux Foundation's enterprise blockchain community. And twice, in 2021 and again in 2023, the Interchain Foundation gave them grants to write IBC in Solidity so Ethereum could join in. And with JCB, yes, the card network, they demonstrated payment versus payment, swapping 2 different digital currencies at the same instant, so neither side is ever exposed. Okay, this is the signature mechanism, and it's worth slowing down for. Light clients are beautiful in theory and brutal in practice, because for Ethereum to verify a Cosmos chain, it has to run that verification in a smart contract, and every signature check costs gas. Do it properly, and the gas bill makes the whole thing pointless. So Datachain's answer is called LCP, Light Client Proxy, and the move is this. Don't run the light client on the destination chain. Run it inside an Intel SGX enclave, a sealed region of a processor that can prove, cryptographically, exactly what code is running inside it. The enclave does the expensive verification, then hands out a small proof that says, I checked and it's valid. The destination chain verifies that one little proof instead, And because the proof looks the same, whichever chain it came from, you also stop rewriting light clients for every new pair. Now, let's be straight about the trade. You have not removed trust. You've moved it. You stop trusting a committee of bridge validators and you start trusting a chip and the attestation that proves it. That's a real assumption, and anyone telling you otherwise is selling something. What I'll say in their favor is that their own architecture diagram doesn't hide it. It shows 3 separate LCP nodes, each running an enclave light client with multi-signature across them. So no single chip is the whole story. And right beside them, a zero-knowledge light client. The ZK path is being built in the open as the successor. So how does a research shop end up signing that agreement? Slowly, and by delivering. September 2022, Mitsubishi UFJ Trust starts a technical partnership with them. Cross-chain settlement of digital securities against a stablecoin. The following April, they announce it works. That June, the bank stops being just a counterparty and becomes an investor. And by that September, Datachain is one of the 8 founding shareholders of Progmat, the platform we pulled apart in the last video, now the flagship. In September 2024, Progmat and Datachain launched Project Pax, and the idea is the opposite of what crypto usually proposes. Cross-border payments are enormous, slow, and expensive. So the obvious pitch is, rip out the old rails, put stablecoins in. Pax doesn't say that. Pax says, leave SWIFT where it is. Let the bank send the same message through the same API framework it already uses, and let that message instruct the settlement that happens on a blockchain. The sender never has to know a stablecoin was involved. They filed a patent on that in October 2024, and on the 1st of May this year, the Japan Patent Office granted it. And the honest caveat, because it matters. Pax is still phased. Phase 2 began in April 2025, with Shoko Chukin Bank joining early. The original goal was a commercial launch in 2025. That has not been announced as met. So what do they actually sell today? Because in 2026, this stopped being a research lab. In July, they launched the early access version of Datachain Wallet, built around a really simple observation. Every consumer crypto wallet assumes one person holds one seed phrase. No company on earth works that way. So instead of a seed phrase, it uses passkeys, the same face or fingerprint unlock you already use, which quietly solves the awkward corporate question of what happens when the person holding the keys resigns. Transfers run through an approval workflow with multi-signature, so no single employee can move company money alone. And here's how you know they're aiming at banks rather than crypto natives. In June, an independent assessor issued them a SOC2 Type 1 report on that wallet. Now, a Type 1 says an outside firm checked how your controls are designed at one moment in time. A Type 2 says somebody watched them actually working over months. Type 1 is the easier one, and to their credit, Datachain say exactly that themselves and say Type 2 is next. Now this next one is my favorite thing in the whole company, partly because of the name. In June, they renamed their privacy platform to Kura Privacy. Kura is the Japanese word for a merchant's storehouse, the thick-walled building where a trading house kept its valuables and its ledgers, and handed the key only to people it trusted. That is precisely the design brief, because here's the wall every corporate treasurer hits. On a public chain, your counterparties, your amounts, and your balances are visible to anyone with a browser. No finance director signs off on that. But just making everything anonymous fails too, because then your auditor can't do their job and your regulator says no. So Kura splits the difference. Using zero-knowledge proofs, you can hide just the recipient, or hide sender, recipient, and amount together, so nobody can even link your payments into a pattern. And then the part I love. You hand your auditor or your own accounts team a viewing key. That key reads the balances and the full transaction history, and it cannot move a single yen. Moving money needs a different key entirely. So it isn't nobody can see, it's you choose who sees. And this isn't a slide deck. In late July, they opened the Service API on testnet and gave partners a working browser demo. 10 launch partners are named on the site, including, rather sweetly, their own parent company, SPI. Okay, so here's where it gets bigger than one company. On the 7th of April this year, Hisata was invited to brief a project team inside Japan's ruling party, the Liberal Democratic Party's Digital Society Promotion Headquarters, on tokenized deposits. In the same session, they also heard from JP Morgan Chase's Tokyo branch and from the Financial Services Agency. And in May, that team published its recommendation. Now, the name of the team tells you everything. It is the Next Generation AI and On-Chain Finance Project Team. And the document opens, not with regulation, but with a scene. A factory takes delivery of parts. An AI checks the quantity and the contract terms the moment they arrive, and payment settles automatically in a yen stablecoin. So the small supplier gets paid on delivery instead of sitting on a long payment cycle. It uses the phrase agentic commerce. And at the end of July, Datachain started the proof of concept that builds exactly that rail, wiring business systems and sensors into on-chain settlement, so a real-world delivery can trigger a real payment. Underneath it sits Cross Framework, and a granted Japanese patent with their own chief technology officer, Jun Kimura, named as the inventor. It's a two-phase commit across chains. Ask both sides, can you do this? And only then tell both sides do it. So you never get the nightmare where the money moved and the asset didn't. And 3 weeks before that, they began technical advisory work for MUFG Bank itself, not the trust bank, the commercial bank, on building its on-chain financial infrastructure. So where does that leave us? Datachain's answer to that opening question is, I think, this. What they brought to that table wasn't capital, and it wasn't a customer list. It was 5 years of unglamorous work on one narrow problem. How one ledger safely believes another, turned into things you can actually point at. 2 granted Japanese patents, 2 grants from the Interchain Foundation, a Hyperledger Labs project, an independent audit report, and 105 public repositories still being committed to. And the action item here is free and checkable today. Their developer documentation is open. The Kura Service API reference is right there, no sales call, and it'll tell you in 5 minutes whether this is real engineering or a pitch deck. Then, put one date in your diary. Just last week, on the 10th of August, they were named a top 30 finalist in the AFA Awards from 88 nominations across Asia in the financial infrastructure category. That gets cut to a top 10, and the final pitch is on the 1st of September. So don't take my word for any of this, or theirs. Go and look, and then watch what happens on the 1st. If you got something out of that, a like genuinely helps it find the people who'd want it. Subscribe if you want more of these primary sources. No price talk, no hype. Come join us in the Motion Room. Links in the description. And if there's a project you want measured, post the name on the request board. And grab the newsletter while you're there. 1 email every Friday. I'll see you in the next one.